no way around it. Growing up is hard. We idealize childhood innocence and try to downplay the struggle that children go through as they begin the long, arduous journey to becoming adults. Why? Because since we're older and have more experience under our belts, we often know the problems they're facing probably aren't as big as they think it is in most cases. As such, a lot of kids don't really feel like they have anyone to talk to on a personal level, in a way they need to be heard, and this can carry far into adulthood. As a result, many kids, myself included, are drawn more and more into the realm of comic books, and as such, are usually drawn to the huge, sprawling universes of the superheroes. It's not just kids though. A huge part of the demographic for modern comics are adults. Some who grew into it, while others adopted it later on in life. Which begs the question, what's the appeal? Why are we drawn to these bright costumed people? Why do we love to see their adventures? Is it just because they could serve as entertaining escapism? For some, yeah. But I would argue that the reason many of us are drawn to these characters isn't because we like them, it's because we need them. Just about every person on the planet wants the same thing, to feel heard and understood. But our culture unfortunately doesn't allow us many ways to feel exactly that. We're expected to pull ourselves out of our own pain. We're told not to talk about it because it might make other people uncomfortable. We're often told to hide who we are just to maintain the social norms. But in the world of superheroes, we're drawn in by characters who seem to deliberately stand out, expressing who they are in a way for all the world to see, who can do the things that we can't. But the more we find out about them, the more we realize that even the extraordinary still struggle with the needs we struggle to fulfill every day. We see heroes who are plagued by doubt, fear, pain, insecurities, tragedy, you name it. Some heroes who choose to actively hide who they are in fear of exposure, and some who flaunt it in arrogance. Some who have no choice but to let the world see them as they are and deal with the fear, rejection, and judgment that comes with being openly different. Some who do good despite the pain they've been through, and others who choose to use their pain to become better. We eventually get to the point where we're not there for the battles or the costumes or the monologues, although all those things are fun too. We're there for the struggles, the victories, the failures, the hopes and dreams of larger-than-life people who, despite all the power at their disposal, still fall victim to human frailty. When I was a kid, the character that really got me into comics was Spider-Man. And I rediscovered the character through the old Spider-Man PS1 game that came out way back out in 2000, which I still say was one of the best Spider-Man games of all time, even though I know it's largely nostalgia talking. Fight me! And boy howdy did I play the ever-loving hell out of this game. I must have played it to completion 100 times. I loved the colors, the lore, I loved learning about all the characters, discovering such great characters like Peter Parker, Venom, Doc Ock, and Mysterio for the first time. For 9-year-old me, this was magical. This eventually led me to watching the 90s Spider-Man cartoon, which I also watched to death, and eventually put on my first subscription to Marvel Comics for the series Ultimate Spider-Man. I could even tell you exactly what issue it was. Issue 24 during the fourth storyline of the series, and the first return of the Green Goblin. That's how clearly I remember reading this series as a kid and how much it meant to me. From there, I was hooked. Every trip to a comic store felt like Christmas. I tracked down every piece of lore and information I could find, which was a lot harder to come by in early 2000s internet, and it took me a long time to finally realize, or even ask myself, why I was so interested in this world. Back then, I had a good family, but I didn't have very good friends. I went through my fair share of emotional abuse. Times I was actively called worthless by friends I had since I was in diapers, and always made to feel less than everyone around me. I continuously tried to change myself to fit their standards, always wanting to feel accepted by a group I secretly knew never would. I always felt like the outsider looking in, wanting to know what it was like to not feel worthless and alone. When I finally broke away from that group in my late teens, I spent many years as a loner, afraid to trust and afraid to love, feeling like no one ever could. Now, I'm not going to pretend my suffering was greater than anyone else's by any means, but the point is, I spent most of my adolescence and teenage years with a stark feeling of loneliness and anxiety that I have trouble shaking to this day. But reading those books, it wasn't just reading the adventures of a brightly costumed hero. I was reading the story of a young man being very quickly exposed to the unfairness of life and its many injustices. And he got upset, he got angry, He failed many times, often more than he won, and often had to make sacrifices he got no recognition for or even had any control over. But in all the things that life threw at him, every tragedy, every heartbreak, every time he wanted to give up after his world came crashing down, he never stopped. He never stayed down, he always got back up. He never stopped trying to do the right thing, even when it meant sacrificing everything. And as he grew up, so did I. And I picked up more books with more heroes that helped me become the person I am today. Whenever I felt frustrated by the way life just hit you sometimes, I would read Spider-Man. When I struggled with self-harm and suicidal thoughts, I would turn to some of my favorite pages of Superman. When I needed courage to face the day, I would turn to Green Lantern. When I felt my anger getting the better of me, I'd read The Adventures of Flash Thompson's Venom. The list goes on and on. I do honestly believe that Spider-Man permanently changed my life, and I don't know where I'd be without him. Which brings me back to the main question brought up in this video. Why do we need superheroes now more than ever? Because in our darkest moments, these heroes make us feel understood. They make us feel heard in a way that's hard to get from people sometimes. People who often want to believe everything is okay so badly, they'll pretend the problems don't exist. But these heroes don't. They face it head on, even if it hurts, especially when it hurts. And they do so while facing the same problems we do every day. The fights with villains are cool and all, but they aren't usually the stuff we remember the most. We remember their battles with addiction, their struggles with loss, their attempts to make the world better. These are the things we remember the most because that's what makes them the most like us. And they make us feel like someone, somewhere, real or fictional, knows what we're going through. And that makes it feel real, makes it feel like what we're going through matters. And that can make all the difference in whether or not these struggles beat us. There's a quote by Neil Gaiman who paraphrases a quote by G.K. Chesterton that says, "Fairy tales are more than true, not because they tell us dragons exist, but because they tell us dragons can be beaten." And I honestly believe that superheroes exemplify this same ideal. They remind us that life is worth living, that we can survive whatever life throws at us, that our dragons can be slain. And most important of all, no matter how much pain we go through, they teach us never to stop trying to be good. We have a responsibility to not just help ourselves through pain, but to pick up others who have fallen through theirs. Because superheroes aren't just here to save the day, but to give us courage to do the same. So for everyone watching this right now, slay your dragons, fight like hell to survive, and when you have the tools to do so, teach them to others. Don't just save the day, make a better future. With all that said, I can think of only one line to finish this off. Up, up, and away.